So now I'd like to tell you a couple stories to illustrate each of these 5 business model elements. And the first one I want to tell you about is about 2 guys who wanted to enter the fishing industry in the UK. These guys were in the south of England. They wanted to be fishermen, but they didn't have a boat. Hard to be a fisherman if you can't get out on the water. So they said, well, we got to buy a boat. But we don't have enough money to buy a boat. But we do have enough money to buy a hull. So let's buy a hull, and we're pretty handy. We'll fit out the boat, and when the boat's ready, we'll launch it. We'll make some money. Then we'll buy another hull. We'll fit it out. And over time, we'll build up a fleet, and we'll have a nice growing fishing business. So that's what they do. They buy the hull. They fit it out. And the boat's almost done, and somebody comes up and he says, can I buy your boat? Partner A says to partner B, I don't know if we want to sell this thing. We've been working so hard to get into business, I'm not sure we should sell it. Partner B says, well, let's ask a really high price, because if we can get enough for it, we can buy 2 hulls, and then we can launch twice as big. Okay, so they agree to do it. They ask for a really high price, and they sell the boat. They buy 2 hulls, they fit them out. What happens again? Some guy comes along. Can I buy those 2 boats? Partner A says to partner B, if you don't quit selling the boats, we're never going to get into business. The name of that company is Princess Yachts. The 2 guys have yet to go fishing commercially, but they've sold a whole lot of boats, right? So often what happens is the plan A that you think you have isn't actually how you get your money. Your money might come from a very different kind of model than you think you're going to get it when you get into business. Okay, so that's the revenue model. Gross margin model. Interesting company. This is one that's actually got a plan A that's working, called Zynga. Who's played a game on Zynga in the room? Anybody? Yeah? Cool games? Yeah? Do you have to pay to play the game? No, you don't. Website, you can play the game for free. And one of the popular games is called Farmville. And what do you need to be a farmer? Tractors, land, stuff like that, right? So how do you get your tractor or your land, do you suppose? Oh, you haven't played that one. Okay, but what you have to do is you got to buy them. It doesn't cost very much, a couple dollars for a tractor, and depending on how much land you want, you can pay for that. What's the cost of goods sold to Zynga to sell the tractor? 0, right? We call it virtual goods. Selling virtual goods is a really nice gross margin model, right? Okay, really nice. 100% gross margins. Would you like that in your business? You'd like that, right? Okay, so that's pretty cool. Okay, third building block, your operating model. It's all the other costs other than cost of goods sold that you need to stay in the business. And the poster child for this is this company we all know here in the UK called Ryanair. You may not know Ryanair's history. Ryanair was a small conventional airline. It was flying people. Do we have any Irishmen in the room? Yeah, flying back. Did you fly Ryanair in the early days? No, they were flying back and forth. Dublin, London, Dublin, Manchester, stuff like that, right? Back and forth, Ireland, England, losing boatloads of money. Just like most airlines do. That's what you do when you're in the airline business, right? You lose money. So they're losing money, and their accountant says, you know, if you guys don't do something differently, you're going to be out of business really soon because you're burning too much cash. And they said, if you're so smart, Michael O'Leary, you come in and you see if you can fix it. So the accountant, O'Leary, comes into the business. First thing he did was to fly to Texas and have dinner with a guy named Herb Kelleher. Kelleher is the founder of Southwest Airlines. And he had figured out how to run a really low-cost airline in the days when there weren't those things around. O'Leary came back to the UK and to Ireland and said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take operating costs out of this airline. And we're going to be ruthless about taking cost out so that it costs us as little as possible to operate this thing. So what costs could you take out of an airline? What's one?
Meals.
Food. Food's no good anyway, right? You might as well take it out. Okay, what else could you take out? Okay, luggage. Tickets. Well, you got to have tickets. But who sells you the tickets? Travel agents. So let's take out travel agents, right? We'll make them phone. This is pre-internet days. We'll make them phone Ryanair to buy a ticket. And by the way, who pays for the phone call, do you suppose? The customer, right? You take that cost out too. What else can you take out? Take out advertising. So no ads. Let it just go by word of mouth, word will get around. What else? Staff. Yeah, so you want to keep operating costs down, right? So you put the minimum number of people on the plane, but you also want to minimize your ground staff. And one of the issues for Ryanair was, when does an airplane make money? When it's sitting on the ground or when it's flying? You want it flying, right? So how do you minimize ground time? Well, it turns out there are a couple things that ground staff have to do in between flights. You know all the candy wrappers and garbage and old newspapers we leave in the seat back pockets? Somebody has to clean that stuff up, right? That takes time and money. How could we solve that problem, O'Leary says? Well, let's have no seat back pockets. So we'll order planes with no seat back pockets. You know the little windows, window shades, right? Somebody has to go around and push them all up in case the customers leave them down. Well, let's buy planes with no window shades, right? You got to fix the planes every once in a while, right? Got to have absolutely good safety. Let's have only one kind of plane, so we need one set of spare parts, one training approach, and so on. What else is really expensive running an airline? Landing rights. Yeah, it costs a lot of money to land at Heathrow or Dublin or whatever. Well, gee, you know, if you look at Europe from Google Earth, you know what you see? A lot of old World War II airstrips. O'Leary says we can call those airports. And I made the mistake of flying to one once. I flew once from Stansted. First mistake was flying from Stansted. It took me almost 2 hours to get there from my house near the school. I got to Stansted. Then I flew to this airport that was said to be Barcelona. And then I got on the bus to take me to Barcelona. Guess which took longer, the airplane flight to this airport or the bus ride? It was the bus ride. Unbelievable. But they've done this all over Europe, and of course, therefore, they're not paying the kind of landing fees that BA and others are. And in some communities, because of the economic development potential that Ryanair brings, Ryanair actually gets paid to land there. Okay, so has he done a nice thing with the cost of operating the airline here? Yeah, he's taken all the costs out, and I think we've all in the UK heard his latest and greatest idea, right? Put a coin slot on the bathroom, right? Okay. Okay. Working capital model. Very interesting company called Costco, now with some stores in the UK. Do we have anybody here who shops at Costco? Yeah? Why do you shop there?
Well, he offers a lot of products and it's very cheap.
A lot of products and it's really cheap. Okay, so can you buy ketchup, for example? Yeah. Oh, it's not just a little jar.
No. It's 6 or 12 packs.
It may be 12 jars of ketchup, or maybe a lifetime supply jar of ketchup, right?
That's the only issue. You cannot buy in small quantities.
It's huge quantities. Well, if Costco's buying from its vendors in huge quantities and getting these very efficient multi-packs, does it get good pricing? It does from its vendors, and it can pass those prices on to its customers because it has a rule we don't sell anything at a gross margin higher than 14%. Toilet paper. Can you get toilet paper there? How many rolls?
24.
Yeah, I think it's 24 actually. Yeah. Okay, so huge quantities, very low prices. Now there's one other unusual thing about Costco, right? You have to pay to shop there.
Yeah, you need to become a member.
Yeah. Isn't this a fairly radical idea that we would pay to shop in a store? But you do, and happily so.
Yeah. Because eventually, if you spend a lot of money in Costco, you get that money back.
Yeah, you're going to make money. Guess what? If you add up, what is it, 35 pounds a year or something, whatever it is,
yep,
and $50 in the US, you add up all the people who paid that and compare that to operating profit each year, those member fees are 2/3 of annual operating profit for Costco. What does it let them do with a regular retail business? Basically run it at break even, right? Try and compete with that if you're Marks & Spencer or Target or Walmart or whatever. Okay? Amazing working capital model because they've get the customer's money up front, they have essentially no cash out right when they open a store. And because people buy so much so fast, they can turn the inventory really quickly, and so they have their customer's cash from cash or a debit card before they have to pay the vendor. As a matter of fact, Costco generates on day one when it opens a new store enough cash from that store to open 3 more stores. Is that a nice working capital model? Really cool. Okay, last example, investment models. And do you remember when VoIP came along and people said, well, we're gonna blow away the telephone companies' long-distance business, and 2 companies did it in fundamentally different ways. Skype here in Europe and Vonage in the US. Vonage said, let's see, we're gonna do this job on long-distance telephones, so let's see. If you're going to make telephone calls, you have to have a telephone, right? And therefore, you need switches, and you need routers, and you need to get last-mile access to people's homes and all that stuff. So we're going to have to get to scale really fast so we can afford all this investment we're going to have. So we're going to spend a lot of money on marketing, and they spent in year 1 $246 million US. And do you know how many customers they got out of that? 1.4 million customers. About $180 a customer. Skype had a different idea. Let's see, we're going to have people making telephone calls, but you don't really need a telephone to make a telephone call, do you? Because everybody's got a PC. So let's just load our software on people's PCs. They can call each other, and because the software is on their PCs, we don't even need servers. Okay? So they build this system. It spreads like wildfire because free telephone calls is kind of a nice proposition. And in year 1, how many customers? 7 million. Spending on marketing? Nothing. Okay? Nice investment model. They ended up selling the business to eBay for $2.6 billion US. Now, eBay probably overpaid by about $1 billion, but still, you know, a nice deal. Okay. Now, what do those examples have in common? Most of them built their eventual success not on the initial idea with which they started, but on something you might call Plan B. And the really interesting thing to me is for each of them, their success was based on doing something radical with just one of the 5 business model elements. It's not something really complex. It's just taking one element and saying we're going to do this radically differently than everybody in our industry does. Now, which elements did they break through? For Apple and Princess, it was the revenue model. Apple took razors and razor blades, turned it upside down. It's worked really well. In fact, Apple just recently has passed Microsoft as the single company in the world with the highest market cap. So it's done okay, right? Princess, doing really well by selling boats, not going fishing. Zynga, really nice business, making money, selling these virtual goods to people who want to play their games, all on Facebook, I might add. Ryanair, single biggest airline in Europe by passenger count today. Costco, fantastic success across the US, now coming to Europe. And Skype, we all know about Skype. So my question for you who want to start a new venture or who have one that maybe isn't yet performing to the potential you'd like is on which single element can you break through to radically do things differently than the rest of your industry?